So let's go ahead and have a seat. And just find your nice, straight, aligned spine. Relax your shoulders. Balance your head on top of your spine. Take a really deep breath in through the nose. Big exhale through the mouth. Just take a couple of easy, gentle, normal breaths as you feel into your body, noticing every sensation. And begin to breathe a little deeper and a little slower. Ujjayi breathing if you can. And then check in with your thoughts, your emotions, and your energy. And then if there's anything that you need to transform or enhance or delete, you can use that information to set your personal intention. So let's bring our palms together in front of our hearts. Just pause for a moment, set our intention for practice today. Make sure you're very clear on your intention. Take a deep breath in. And a big exhale. Open your eyes. Roll your shoulders back a couple of times. Good. And then you can just transition onto your hands and knees. We're going to start with some cat-cow stretches. So just loosening up the spine, inhaling to arch and exhaling to round. And then on your next exhale, just go ahead and take your backside to your heels. Sorry, child's pose. And then from your child's pose, scoot forward into Sphinx, lengthen out. And then after you've had a moment to lengthen your spine, let's go ahead and take downward facing dog. Just take a moment to kind of pedal the feet. See how your body's feeling here. And then once you've kind of loosened up the calves and hamstrings a little bit, go ahead and find stillness. Press the hips back. Press the heels down. Go ahead and walk the feet forward, keeping the knees bent. Relax your neck. And just hang and ragdoll for a couple of breaths. Let the spine lengthen. And then on your next inhale, reach your arms all the way up and overhead. And exhale, bring your palms together in front of your heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold all the way forward, standing forward bend. Inhale and look up halfway. And exhale back down. Step back with your left foot. Just hold your lunge for a moment. So when we're working front of the hips, we can always get that by either just stretching or by causing a reflex release. And we're going to work with both of those today. So as you're here in this position, it's kind of the first. It's a stretch. So you might feel this on the back of your right thigh, but we also want to feel it on the front of the left hip. So you have to let your pelvis drop and kind of press back through your left heel. And then you should start to feel a little something on the front of the left hip. So let's go ahead and drop your left knee down. Start off with the right hamstring. So extend your right leg, flex the ankle and toes. And then we're gonna bend the right knee, bring the arms up and overhead, tilt the pelvis back and let the hips move forward. Now we're kind of gonna work with that reflex release. So if you very consciously tighten or contract the muscles in your left glute, like the bottom of your left buttock, you will start to feel a reflex release on the front of your left hip. Take a couple more breaths here. And then we're just going to take the left hand down to the mat, right hand towards the ceiling. And then right hand to the inside of the right knee, rolling to the outside edge of the right foot and pressing that leg open. From here, we're just going to release the right knee, let it come back and join the left knee. Give yourself a little tail wag. And then we'll take child's pose. Now, for anyone that's going to be doing traditional vinyasas, you may begin taking those at this point. Otherwise, another nice spine lengthening sphinx should feel pretty good. And then downward facing dog. So from your down dog, take a big step forward with your left foot. Just like we did on the other side, we want to use this pose to allow the front of the right hip to just stretch. So the more you allow your hips, your pelvis to be heavy and kind of drop down towards the mat, the more you'll start to get that in the front of the right hip. You can also press back with your right heel. Let's go ahead and drop the right knee down. Extend the left leg. We're going to get into that left hamstring. Flex the ankle and toes. And then let's bend the left knee, bring the arms up and overhead. And so this is where we're going to do that reflex release, right? So I want you to really consciously tighten your right glute and the muscles at the base of it as the hips move forward so that you feel a stretch on the front of your right hip, but it's mainly because you are contracting on the opposite side. We're going to take the right hand down to the mat, take the left hand up towards the ceiling. And then bring that left hand to the inside of the left knee, roll to the outside edge of your left foot and press that leg open. From here, let your knee come back up and let's step forward to our standing forward bend. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead. And as you exhale, bring your palms together in front of your heart. Inhale, reach up. And exhale, fold forward. Inhale, look up halfway. And exhale, back down. So we're going to step back with the right foot this time. Nice big step back. And I want you to come back into that lunge, just letting the hips drop. Notice if this one feels any different. Like we should slowly be making incremental progress. So just see if that. And then drop the right knee down. And I want you to scoot your left foot forward quite a bit. And then go ahead and come on up with your hands on top of your left thigh. So when you come up, you've got a lot of distance between your left foot and your right knee, right? Length of the mat. Be mindful here, pay attention, but go ahead and tilt your pelvis back, tightening that right buttock. You can keep your hands on your thigh if you need to, or you can bring the arms overhead. You're gonna go ahead and let those hips move forward again. So now they have a little bit more encouragement to go farther and deeper because of this longer stance. You should feel this a little more intently now in the front of that right hip or thigh. Take a couple more breaths here, consciously contracting right glute. And then bring both hands down inside that left foot and keep this longer stance that you've got. Come on to your right forearm. You're welcome to use a block if you need to. Maybe even get that left forearm down and take a couple of breaths here. From here, we'll come back up onto the hands. Take the left knee back to meet the right knee. Give yourself a little tail wag. Either a vinyasa or child's pose. If you're in child's pose, you can scoot forward into either Sphinx or Cobra. So at this point, if you prefer to do Cobra pose instead of Sphinx, knock yourself out. Do what's best for you always. And then downward facing dog. From this downward facing dog, we're going to go ahead and step the right foot forward. So you're in that initial lunge again. And we just kind of see if we're making progress on this side. Let those hips drop. And then we'll go ahead and drop the left knee down. Walk your right foot forward. Scooch it forward quite a bit. Just like we did on the other side. We'll come on up. You want to have lots of distance. So you do not want a 90-degree angle. You want way longer than that, right? More open angle at the knee. Hands can stay on the right thigh or come up and overhead. Tilt your pelvis. Tighten that left buttock as you let your hips move forward to deepen the stretch in the front of your left hip. Bring both hands down inside the right foot. Remember, I don't want you to scoot your foot back. I want you to keep this longer stance. Come on to left forearm or a block. Maybe get the right one down as well. Take a couple of breaths. Come on up to your hands. Move your right foot back a little bit so you can step forward to your standing forward bend. And then inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, palms together in front of your heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale and fold forward. Inhale and look up halfway. And then exhale back down. So we're going to step back with the left foot again. That same lunge. This is your third time here. Notice if it feels any different. Hopefully we're making small amounts of progress. Drop your left knee down. Now what we're going to do is keep the left hand on the ground and reach the right hand behind us. And I want you to look over your right shoulder at your right thumb. So the first thing we're going to do here, I want you to feel your posture. If you've got your bum back and you've got like 90 degrees at your left hip, forget about it. Sink your hips as far forward as you can and tighten your left buttock. Now, if you do that, you should already start to feel front of the left hip. And this might be it for you today, and that's perfect. If you feel like you can, go ahead and bend your left knee. And that right hand that's already reaching behind you can just clasp your left foot or ankle, or maybe your pants. Keep your left glute tightening and the hips moving towards the mat. So you should try and feel more in the front of your left hip, whether or not you're grabbing your foot. 2 more breaths here. Breath is important. And then release out of that. Just take your right knee back to meet your left knee. Wag your tail. Go straight into downward facing dog. And then step your left foot forward. And check out your lunge here. How are things progressing, if at all? And maybe they're not, like maybe there hasn't been any change yet, and that's okay, right? We're just trying to observe without judgment. Then we're gonna go ahead and drop the right knee down. We're gonna keep the right hand on the ground and just rotate left hand behind us. And we're looking at that left thumb. And then again, you don't want your bum moving back. You want to tighten your right glute and let the hips move forward so that you start to feel this on the front of your right hip. And if this is as far as you go, this is perfect. If you can and or want to bend your right knee, just grab that foot or ankle or your pants, but keep tightening your right glute. Release out of whatever version you're in. We're stepping straight back, downward facing dog. And take a couple of breaths here. So if you really kind of tip your pelvis forward in your down dog, which means you're kind of trying to poke your tailbone up towards the ceiling, this is a nice counter pose for those front hip openers. Take a couple more breaths in down dog. And then we're going to walk the feet forward, standing forward bend, also tipping the pelvis forward. And then inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, bring your palms together in front of your heart. So next up, we're going to work a little bit with Warrior One and just really fine tune it so that we can feel the benefits that it's designed to give us, which is front hip opening. So if you'll start at the front of your mat and look down at your feet, they should be hip distance apart, not outer hip distance apart, hip bone distance apart. Usually that's like 6 to 8 inches at the most, all right? You're going to maintain that 6 to 8 inch distance between your feet as you step back with your left foot. Now, when you step back, if that left foot steps behind the right foot, just sneak your right foot over. That's absolutely acceptable. Then left heel should be flat. Left leg should be straight. We're going to put the hands on the hips and rotate them so that our hip bones are pointing forward. We want the pelvis squared off at the front of the mat. So if you put a little board across your hip bones, it would be parallel to the front side of your mat. Left leg stays straight. Right knee bends. Pelvis tilts back. Now you should be starting to feel the front of that left hip. Maybe drop a little deeper into it, and then you take the arms up and overhead. Now, if you can get all of that, that's awesome. What we're going to add to it is tightening on purpose that left glute. Be very conscious of not trying to bend that left knee to get there. Keep your left leg straight. Tighten your left buttock. Rotate those hips and find your Warrior One. And then just step your left foot forward and bring your palms together. So even just standing here now, you should feel the difference between the front of your left hip and the front of the right. So we're going to do the other side. You start the same way. Your feet are hip bone distance apart or sit bone distance apart. Right leg steps back. You want your right leg straight. Your heel should be flat. You push your hips around as much as you possibly can so that they're parallel to the front side of the mat. Your left knee bends. You, on purpose, tighten your right gluteal muscle. And then you take the arms up and maybe you let the hips go a little deeper. You keep fine tuning it, making sure right leg is straight, right glute is tight, so that you begin to feel it in the front of your right hip. If you've got the body awareness to do so, think about tilting the pelvis back a little bit. It's kind of like tucking your tailbone under. And then step forward, hands together in front of the heart. So the classic dancer pose is, of course, a beautiful front hip opener. We're going to work that, but we're going to be really particular about it being just for the front of the hips. So we're not going to lean today. So for those of you who feel balance challenged, if you need to hang on with one hand, you have my blessing. We're going to stay vertical. I want you to stand on your left foot first. And you can grab the outside of the foot or the inside of the foot today. It's completely up to you. The emphasis is on the hip. So grab whatever you can grab on that right side. And all you're gonna do is just hang on to your foot for a second. We're gonna be very particular again. Tilt the pelvis back. Think of tucking your tailbone under. Lift the rib cage up. Then all I want you to do is pull your right knee behind your left knee. When you get that going on, you should already start to feel some things opening on the front of the hip. Now you can start to open at the knee and push the leg back if you want, but I want you to just focus on contraction of the right glute, tilting of the pelvis, and pulling the knee back. Now, if you're hanging on to something, great. If you're not, left arm can go up or you can leave it at your side. Release down. Take a breath. If you're hanging on to something, turn around because you're going to need your left hand for your left foot. Reach back, grab whatever you need to grab. And again, we're just going to be particular about how we set this up. So the first thing you want to do is tilt your pelvis back, lift your rib cage up, and then you move your left knee back behind the right thigh. And if you're tightening your left buttock, that should be enough to already give you sensation in the front of that left hip. You can continue to press back with the leg if you want, but be very mindful of keeping your left buttock very contracted so that you're getting that opening on the front of the left hip. And then release down. Feet together at the front of the mat, palms together. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold forward. Let your pelvis tip forward. This is your counter pose to those two dancers that you just did. Inhale, look up halfway and lengthen. Exhale, back down. Step back onto hands and knees. Give yourself a little tail wag. So now we're kind of going to do like a kneeling dance or kneeling bow. Pardon me, if that works with your body. And if it doesn't, you don't have to do this. So I'm going to give you a modification. We're all going to start the same way, and then you just stop progressing when you're at the point that works for you. The first thing we're going to do is take the right leg out behind us, flex the ankle, and lift the right leg. Now, right now, what you're feeling is your right glute contracting, but you're probably not getting a lot on the front of the hip. So I want you to bend your right knee, push the foot up towards the ceiling. Now you should feel a little something on the front of your right hip. If you feel like you can, you'll reach back with your left hand to grab that right foot. Just like we did a dancer, you keep moving the knee up basically towards the ceiling while you're tightening your right buttock. Release that down. Give yourself a little tail wag. Take a quick child's pose. You've earned it right there. And then we come up so that we can work the left side. So the same thing here. Extend your left leg, flex the foot, and lift it. So now your left glute is engaged. Awesome. Bend your left knee and take that left foot up towards the ceiling, like you try to take your knee up towards the ceiling. Now your glutes contracted, but you should also feel something on the front of your left hip. If you can and you want to, reach back with your right hand to grab that left foot and give a little assist, lifting even higher, keeping left glute tight, and then release down and take a child's pose. From your child's pose, I would love for you to go ahead and scoot forward into Sphinx, lengthen your spine, and then we're going to stay here for a moment because we're going to use Cobra, proper traditional Cobra, to kind of open up the front of the hips too. Now, please be mindful if you have back issues because we're working on the front of the hips, right? So, from Sphinx, if you can, Go ahead and let the heels kind of squeeze together as well. You're gonna feel your buns tighten, okay? I want you to keep your buns tight. Hands are gonna come back by your rib cage, not under the shoulders. I want you to very strongly push your pubic bone into the mat. Keep your buns extra tight and just barely lift the rib cage. You want to keep the bottom of the rib cage in contact with the mat. Keep squeezing your buns, pushing pubic bone into the mat, and then lower down, downward facing dog. And remember, you really want to play with the tilt of the pelvis in your down dog, tipping it forward this time so that it's a really nice, yummy counter pose. And then we're going to drop down to the knees one more time. And this time, just playing with the baby beginnings of a camel, but we're not going to do the full pose. Even if you can, not going there. So what I'd like you to do is make sure that your knees are hip distance, hip bone or sit bone distance apart. Doesn't matter to me if your toes are turned under or not. Your hands are going to stay on your hips the whole time. So hands are going to be back, kind of on your sacrum, back of the pelvis. Your fingers will feel your bum because I want you to feel those muscles tighten and contract. So the first thing we're going to do, pardon me, is tilt the pelvis back. You're already going to feel your glutes contract a little when you do that, right? Your pubic bone is pushing forward. Then we're going to lift the rib cage up, and we're going to kind of gently push our hips forward, squeeze the buns together, and lift the rib cage. And all I want you to do, we're not arching back here, all I want you to do is push with your hands, like you're trying to push your hips forward, and resist that forward movement with your legs and glutes. Now, as you do that, you're getting all the muscles engaged to cause a reflex release in the front of the hips. Take a couple more breaths. And then release into a full-on child's pose for 3 slow, deep breaths. From your child's pose, go ahead and come onto hands and knees. Do a couple of cat-cow stretches to make sure everything feels loose in the low back. And then from here, we're going to come flat onto the stomach again. This time, I want you to bring your forearms in front of you, so like your hands are stacked in front of you so that you can put your forehead on your stacked hands. Just like we did when we were kneeling, we're going to work with one hip at a time. So the first thing you're going to do, keep your left foot in contact with the mat. Raise your right leg however much you can, and then bend your knee and lift it even higher. We're trying to get that thigh off the mat, tighten that right glute. Tilt the pelvis back, take one more breath. Lower your right leg down. Left leg lifts, and then we bend the knee, and we push that leg up even more. Left glute is very tight. You should feel it. And then release. You might roll your hips side to side. It's a nice way to release the low back. And then I would like for you to take one more super duper spine lengthening down dog, tilting pelvis forward so that it's a counter pose to all those front hip openers. In other words, your glutes, which have been very strongly contracting, if you do your downward facing dog right, your glutes are getting a nice stretch. And then from this downward facing dog, we're just going to walk our feet forward and have a seat in Dandasana. And then just taking a moment to find the sit bones. Sit up nice and tall. Hands can be on the floor right beside your hips to help you have that super straight spine. Head should feel as though it's balanced on top of the spine. Just close your eyes for a moment. I want you to check in, see how your body's feeling so far. Notice your breathing. Any thoughts you might have, any emotions, notice your energy. Maybe recall the intention that you set at the beginning of your practice today. Good. And then we're going to do the seated forward bend over both legs, but I want you to be very mindful of this. So, and turn sideways for a moment. If your hips are really tight, when you sit with your legs extended, you're kind of back here on the meaty part of your bum, and your back is rounded. If you have a really hard time getting a straight spine seated, you're going to either want to elevate your hips or use your hands behind you. If this is you, but you feel like you could get there, think about like scooting your seat back. You want to be on the base of the pelvis, on the sit bones, and have a fairly straight spine to start with. So make sure that you can get there. And by the way, it's fine to sit on a bolster or a cushion so that you can sit with your pelvis kind of neutral, because what we're going to try and do is tip the pelvis forward for our forward bend. So the reason that's important is if I am not on my sit bones and I'm back here and I lean forward, what I'm basically doing is really overstretching my low back, and that doesn't end well, right? We want to make sure that we're leaning forward from the pelvis. So make any adjustments that you need to make, and then let's do that. Don't worry about grabbing for your feet or your legs or anything. I want you to actually feel your hip bones starting to tip forward towards the top of the thighs. Flex your ankles, activate your legs, and just keep tipping the pelvis forward. So your chest and your head stay up. We're not trying to lean down. We're just tipping the pelvis forward. Take a couple more breaths. Good. Come on up from that. Let's keep right leg straight. Bring your left foot to the inside of the right thigh. Same thing. You want to have your sit bones on the ground. So if you need to readjust, do that. And then tip your pelvis forward as you lean over your right leg. And this time, feel free to grab for your calf, your ankle, or your foot. Take a couple of deep breaths. Come on up from that. Hands right behind your backside. Your right foot is going to meet your left foot. Straight spine. So it's that same forward tilt of the pelvis that allows us to sit up nice and straight. And then press the knees out to the side and down towards the ground. So you're going to feel outer glutes, which is glute medius, really contracting here. And then you can just extend your left leg out. Right foot can snug to the inside of the left thigh. Make sure you're on your sit bones, because again, I want you to just tip your pelvis forward. Once you get your pelvis tipped forward, lean on out over that left leg. Come on up from that. Left foot meets right foot one more time. Hands right beside your backside. Tilt the pelvis forward a little bit. Press the knees out to the side and down. And then you can release, extend your legs a little bit, give them a wiggle. And then if you remember, when we were doing our standing dancer pose, the key to getting that hip flexor to open was to get the knee that we were hanging onto to come behind the standing leg. If that eluded you in a standing position, you get to do it on your side on the floor, so you don't have to worry about falling. So we're going to lie on our left side first so we can stretch the right hip. So what I usually recommend, and you can, it's your preference, you can either prop up on an elbow or you can flatten out completely. It's whatever's most comfortable for you. Now your left leg, your bottom leg is going to be bent, but if you have it too far in front of you, you'll fall over backwards. So left knee is bent, but it's kind of parallel to the long sides of your mat. You're going to reach down, grab your right foot, ankle, or calf, or you can even grab your pants if you want. Now I'm exaggerating this, but you see when I grab my foot how my knee wants to go up. Once you grab whatever you're going to grab, you're going to bring your thighs parallel again. In other words, this right thigh shouldn't be sticking up in the air. You want it parallel to the ground. And then all we're trying to accomplish here is tilt the pelvis back, tighten the right buttock, and pull the right knee back behind the left. Keep pushing your pubic bone forward. You should feel a pretty significant sensation here in the front of your right hip. Let's take 3 more breaths. Release out. And then we're just going to switch to the right side. Y'all can just roll over if you want. Flip so you don't have to look at my back. So either propping up on the forearm or just putting your hand on your head, whatever makes you happy. Your right knee, your bottom leg is going to bend, but you kind of want it back behind you like a kickstand. Reach down, grab your left foot or ankle with your left hand. Get your thighs parallel. Tuck your tailbone under. Tighten your left buttock. You're going to pull your left knee back behind that right one. Keep pelvis tilted. Keep left glute tight. So what you're looking for here is opening on the front of your left hip. And then release. So you're in a perfect position to go ahead and roll onto your back. You might want to make sure your block is within reach before you do that. So if you joined us later, grab a block if you don't have one. Just keep it handy. We're going to go ahead and roll onto our backs. Hug the knees in. Rock side to side. So first we're going to do a little outer hip stretch. Feet are flat, knees are bent. Feet are wider than the mat. And we're just going to do this rhythmically, so you're not going to be putting a foot on top of a knee. Keep your feet flat outside the mat. Drop both knees to one side. The inner leg, you're going to feel it kind of on that outer hip, front of the thigh a little bit. Bring the legs back up. Drop them both over to the left. Now you should be feeling right hip. A little bit of that outer IT band, front hip flexor, bring the legs back up, drop them to the right again. Should be feeling it on the left side. Bring the knees up, drop them to the left. Last time, take both knees over to the right. And bring both legs up and drop them over to the left. Both legs come back up, hug your knees in, and rock side to side. So we do a very gentle twist, and then we'll do a deeper one at the end of the practice. Just want you to keep both knees bent in together. You're going to drop both knees over to the right. Let your left arm open out to the left, and if it feels okay, head turns to the left. On your next inhale, bring the legs up. As you exhale, drop them over to the left. Right arm opens out to the right, head turns to the right. Bring your legs back up, give them a big squeeze. Rock side to side. So if you have a block, you're going to want to grab that now. The nice thing is you're going to be doing a support supported bridge, right? If you don't have a block, by the way, there's a lot of other things, household items that you can use. Rolled up blanket or towel, just make it pretty fat or thick. If you have firm couch cushions, you can use something like that, almost like a bolster. You could even use 2 or 3 books piled on top of each other if you've got books handy. So if you don't have a block, grab something, because I really kind of want this to be passive for you. So what we're gonna do is get the feet flat, and today, instead of your big toes touching each other, I want you to start like that. Big toes touching, heels are separated. And then keep your heels sitting on a distance apart. Let the feet be parallel. That's so that your glutes will contract a little bit. Now, if you've got back issues, you're going to go flat level and you'll be just neutral and fine there. If you feel like you can today, only if you can, do not hurt yourself, you'll go mid-level. I don't think anybody in this practice today should go high level. It's not about that. This is about the hips, not about back bending. So you make sure that your block fully supports the back side of the pelvis. You should feel very safe here. And then the only thing I want you to do is just make sure that you have a slight backward tilt of the pelvis. So if you tighten your glutes, there shouldn't be a whole lot of movement. It should be just like a clench and release, but your pelvis should not change. If that's the case, you're in the perfect spot, and then all you have to do is relax. You want to keep the knees the same distance as the heels, so I don't want you to let your legs splay. Just keep them as they are. Be mindful of not letting the legs start to drop open. Feel the front of the hips. And by the way, this is a subtle stretch. So we've kind of done the hardcore stuff. We're moving into the gentler, subtler ones, which is why we hold it longer. You kind of have to stick around to begin to feel the sensations, but you should just be at least beginning to feel a hint of something right on the front of your hips, your hip flexors. The top part of the quadriceps, the iliopsoas, important muscles. So when you're next inhale, I'm going to have you lift your backside up. If you're already at the flat level, you're going to stay there and just slide the block a little closer to your tailbone. If you were on mid-level, you're going to want to flip it to the flat level. And now we're going to counterpose that by letting the legs float up. So you know you're in the right spot when your block makes your pelvis tilt back, right? Tailbone tucking under. So in this case, you should almost feel like your low back is slightly rounded. Pardon me, just slightly. You should feel zero effort in keeping the legs in the air. If you're having to hold your legs up, then your block is not positioned appropriately. So please feel free to play with where your block is. We're here for about 6 more breaths. This is a really lovely restorative posture. And then chances are that your block is exactly where it should be. So here's what I'd like you to do. Bend your knees. Grab hold of your left leg or knee with your left hand. Let your right heel find the mat and slide all the way out until your right leg is really straight. And totally relax it. Now, when you do that, it's going to slide back towards you a lot. All right? Totally let it relax. Your right knee might bend, the leg might flop open. All of that is good. Then you pull more on your left knee until you feel your pelvis tilting back even more. Pardon me. And then we just stay here and we wait and we breathe and we watch for that little subtle sensation that we begin to feel in the front of the right hip. Two more breaths on this side. You're just going to slowly slide your right heel back towards you. Pick your right foot up off the ground. So now you got both knees towards your chest. Switch and grab the right one. Put your left heel on the mat. Slide it all the way out so that left leg is really straight. And then totally relax it. Your heel will draw back in towards you. Chances are your knee will bend a little bit and your foot will flop out. That's all good. And then you pull your right knee in towards you. Just like on that first side, just breathe and you wait for it. And you should slowly start to feel a very subtle stretch on the front of your left foot. And then you can slide your left heel back out. Bring both knees into the chest for a moment. Both feet flat on the mat. Lift your bum up. Move the block out from underneath you. Set it off to the side. Hug your knees in and rock side to side. And then we're just going to keep the left knee hugged in, extend the right leg all the way out onto the floor, come into a nice deep spinal twist, just 3 breaths on each side. So your left arm opens out to the left, head turns to the left. You'll notice on this left side that front hip is really getting shortened up. So this is like the balance, right? Counterbalance, counter pose. And come on up, hug your left knee in, bring your right knee up to meet it, and then extend your left leg all the way out on the floor. Twist yourself to the left, right arm opening up to the right, head turning to the right. Now we're shortening up that right hip flexor. It's the counter pose on that side. All while beautifully unwinding the spine and returning it to neutral. All the way back up. Hug your knees in, rock side to side. And then put your feet on the mat, ankles and knees together, feet are flat. Pause for a moment here with your knees pointing straight up, just let your back be neutral, totally neutral. Then let your knees drop open, take a couple of breaths, so the soles of the feet are touching. Now we're going to lengthen the low back that final time. So on your next inhale, tilt the pelvis back. Take the curve out of your lumbar spine. Press your low back into the mat. On your next exhale, release that. Begin to extend your legs. Separate the feet, whatever distance feels extra good today. Roll your thighs in and out, and then let them flop. Lengthen your low back. Relax the shoulders. Rotate your palms up towards the ceiling. Relax your neck. Relax your jaw. Close your eyes softly. Smooth out your forehead. And take a deep breath in through the nose. Big exhale through the mouth. And let go of control of the breathing. Let go of any remaining muscular tension. Just let it all clear from the body. And I want you to just bring your awareness to the very center of your chest. I want you to pay attention to your breathing and notice or sense, if you can, exactly where it is that your breath splits to go into left lung and right lung. It's a very subtle sensation. Let's see if you can pinpoint it. So when you breathe in, the air goes through the nostrils and the sinuses down the back of the throat and the trachea. And then it begins to split into bronchioles that move into each lung. I want you to find that dividing point where your air begins to divide so that it can enter both the left and right lung. Of course, as you exhale, air is coming from each lung and it rejoins at that same point to go back up the throat, the sinuses, and out the nostrils. So we want that point where the air divides and the air rejoins. I want you to keep your focus there. So the more you pay attention to it, often the more you can perceive that point. You might initially have to almost imagine that you can feel it. But it's just like some of our subtle body movements. The longer you wait and breathe, the more pronounced the sensation. And then slowly allow your awareness to drift away from this one pinpoint of sensation to explore other sensations in your body. Noticing perhaps that while you've been occupied watching this one spot where the breath divides and reunites, the rest of your body has become incredibly relaxed while you weren't paying any attention to it. Just notice that level of relaxation. And then just make note of mind state, emotional state, and what your energy feels like. And then begin to bring a little movement back to the fingers and the toes. Start deepening your breath. On your next big inhale, spread the fingers and toes. Exhale through your mouth, relax them. Deeper inhale, stretch to your fullest length. And exhale and relax. Bend your knees. Roll to your right side if you can. And then press yourself up into sitting. And so as you come to your seated position, of course, I want you to feel your sit bones and find a nice, steady, comfortable seat, asana. Nice aligned spine. Our breath work today is going to be pretty basic. We're going to do a 3-part breath. So that's the inhale, the holding of the air in the lungs, and then the exhale. We're not going to do that 4th part. If holding your breath at all makes you nervous or causes coughing or asthma or any other type of anxiety, then please skip that part. We're going to do it as a 1-1-2 ratio breath. So what that means is whatever count you inhale, you will hold your breath for the same count. And then you will exhale for twice as long. So you might inhale for 3, hold for 3, exhale for 6, or inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. You get to choose the length of your breath, but I would love for you to stick with that ratio if you can. This is all through the nose, and the way you get that prolonged exhale is by using Ujjayi breath. All right, so take a deep breath in, exhale completely, and then it's your count, your breath, 3-part breathing, 1-1-2 ratio. So please finish out the breath that you are currently on. And after you finish that breath, just let your breathing return to normal. Bring your palms together in front of your heart. And take a moment in gratitude. Gratitude for these bodies that we currently inhabit. They're pretty miraculous. Gratitude for these breaths that we are given that animate this body we live in. Gratitude for that part of us that is aware of the body and the breath. So gratitude for our consciousness. And gratitude for this practice that helps us bring all of those into balance. Take one more huge breath in through the nose. Big exhale to the mouth. When we bring our palms to our foreheads, it's just a reminder to be present. We bring our palms to our lips, and it's a reminder to speak our truth. We bring our palms to our hearts. It's a reminder to keep our hearts open. We'll always practice kindness, compassion, and unconditional love. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.